the erotic thriller, a favourite movie genre of video store owners and late-night cable TV schedulers alike, before the internet ruined everything. For a time back in the day, an erotic thriller featuring dangerous bathtubs and terrible decision-making could be a serious moneymaker for studios big and small alike. But by the late 90s, that well seemed like it might be running dry. Then in 1998, a wild thriller arrived filled with a stellar cast, wicked games aplenty, and a legitimately intriguing mystery. It did well in cinemas, and the profits positively bulged on video and DVD. But did you know that it spawned not one, but 3 sequels, where things got wilder, weirder, and way more direct to video? Today, we're reopening the case of the movie that made this much maligned genre cool again, and the 3 forgotten, increasingly crazy follow-ups from a franchise that simply refused to be put on ice. This is the very first Sequelpalooza on Cuts. Over the last couple of years, Culture Slice has been exploring notorious sequels and the hit movies they followed in the series Sequelpalooza over on our main channel, and now we're extending that exploration to here on Culture Slice Cuts. Same patented Sequelpalooza recipe, same unique blend of herbs and spices, but just a bit more rapid, a tad looser, and with potentially even more random Tom Selleck references, because in life, there's 3 ways to do things: the right way, the wrong way, and the Sequelpalooza on Cuts way.
Isn't that the wrong way?
Yeah, but faster.
By the early 90s, you couldn't move for an, sensual drama. Yeah, that'll do. Fatal Attraction had become the second biggest film of 1987, received numerous Oscar nominations, and opened the floodgates for the genre. By 1992, Basic Instinct had turned into a full-blown pop culture moment, making north of $350 million in cinemas. Hollywood couldn't get enough. A steady stream of films featuring softcore mood lighting and enough life admin chaos to melt an ice sculpture rolled off the production line. For some reason, no idea why, erotic thrillers absolutely thrived on late night TV. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times Red Shoe Diaries or endless Shannon Tweed movies seemed to be on cable here in the UK, or at least that's what I was told. Never watched the stuff myself, obviously. What was the plot of Body Chemistry 4 Full Exposure again? Anyway, by the mid-90s, the genre was struggling in cinemas. Unless your movie starred Michael Douglas, you were in trouble. Films like Colour of Night with Bruce Willis and Jade from Basic Instinct writer Joe Esterhaz flopped hard, and the small screen became its natural home. Poison Ivy starring Drew Barrymore exemplified the trend. A big screen flop that found a second home on video and spawned sequels starring the likes of Alyssa Milano and Jamie Presley. The erotic thriller had become a creature of the night. But then, a new wave arrived. In 1996, the Wachowskis' debut Bound subverted the genre and drew comparisons to Tarantino and Hitchcock, and a year later, a film went into production in Florida that would bring the erotic thriller bang up to date. Written by Steven Peters and directed by John McNaughton, best known at the time for the massively controversial Henry portrait of a serial killer, Wild Things was a twist-filled mystery that embraced scandal, double crosses, and enough chaos to keep audiences guessing. Oh, and some other stuff. As McNaughton, who had been ready to step into the mainstream, put it years later, I really liked the script, but it was also me asking myself, what sells? Sex and violence. You want sex and violence? Well, here you go. How much can you take? Quite a lot as it transpired when it arrived in March of 1998, with a cast that included Matt Dillon, Kevin Bacon, Denise Richards, Bill Murray and Neve Campbell, who added in a crafty no nudity clause. Wild Things struck a balance between trashy and clever that felt genuinely original. The white trash Hitchcock, if you will. Bacon would later tell McNaughton, when I first read the script, I said to myself that in the wrong hands, this could really be a piece of A lot of critics thought it was just that though, labelling it hollow to the core and preposterous, whilst also completely missing the point. Siskel and Ebert, though, both gave it a thumbs up. Audiences got it too. Wild Things made more than $67 million against its $20 million budget in cinemas, and by the time it made it onto home media, the copies were flying off the shelves like hot, hoses? This Hitchcock for the MTV generation was a smash. McNaughton had a mainstream movie, and it was part of pop culture now. The video and DVD would continue shipping for years, and late night TV couldn't get enough. It became, apparently, the most paused film ever. Believable, although I'd like to know how they measured that piece of data. Either way, the erotic thriller was cool again, in a very late 90s way. The 2000s would, though, see the genre hit a seemingly terminal decline, partly thanks to, internet speed improvements, but also because the films themselves just weren't very good anymore. Case in point, there would be 3 Wild Things sequels, with more attractive people, an Everglades worth of murder, more backstabbing than a Swiss Army knife convention, and yes, plenty more of that. I mean, they literally called the 4th movie Wild Things Foursome. Subtlety was out of the window. The first Wild Things had more twists and turns than Vince Russo era WCW, but it was also, good. Wild Things, I mean, not Vince Russo's WCW. And as for the sequels, good grief. They kept the same basic formula: rich girl, girl from the wrong side of the tracks, dodgy authority figure, police investigation, big twists in the end credits, but with more raunch and less substance every time. First up in the Rogues Gallery was Wild Things 2 Electric Boogaloo in 2004. Okay, it was just Wild Things 2. No subtitle, no John McNaughton, no original cast members, no cinema release, and seemingly no hope. It's essentially the same film, just cheaper, flatter, and packed with slow motion beach scenes, softcore posturing, and suspiciously long pool shots. And all this from the guy who brought us Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus. Wild Things 2 is absolutely not a good film, but it did well enough on DVD for a third movie, Diamonds in the Rough, to turn up a year later. It's trashy as anything, or exotic, as I saw one review call it, but it's nothing if not economical. I actually thought I was watching part 2 again for a minute. By now, the series had fully embraced its direct-to-DVD destiny, with lower budgets, recycled ideas, and an increasing reliance on, visual distraction? Hang on, is that Johnny Cage from Mortal Kombat in parts 2 and 3? Where am I? Moving on. Things lay dormant for a while, but amazingly enough, they weren't done. In 2010, Wild Things Foursome arrived. Yes, that is the real title. The plot involved a trust fund kid played by a former member of 2000's boy band O-Town, a dizzying array of double crosses, and amazingly enough, a foursome, because 4 is better than 3, right? Oh, and Bo from the Dukes of Hazzard turns up as the cop. It's ridiculous, it's messy, it's occasionally entertaining in a what am I watching kind of way, but I wouldn't recommend seeking it out, even if you are an, Wild Things completist. The dialogue, acting, plot and direction would all make Sunset Beach blush. Is this the worst of the lot? Man, I don't even know anymore. And so far, Wild Things 4 has been the end of the line. No more films, no more revival, no redemption arc. Just a franchise that started as something really self-aware and interesting and descended into, The thing is, John McNaughton tried to make a spiritual successor to Wild Things in the 2000s called Backstabbers, from a script he said was Wild Things but a generation later and set in New York. But in the end, it went nowhere, and when it came to the Wild Things follow-ups we did get, I'm not sure why you wouldn't have just watched poor. It's felt at times like the erotic thriller has become something of an endangered species in cinemas in the modern era. And yes, people have the internet now, but for whatever reason, the days when middle-class couples helped turn a film like Basic Instinct into one of the biggest movies in the world appeared to have gone. The genre has proved surprisingly durable in the mainstream though. and in recent years it's had something of a renaissance. The 50 Shades movies made ridiculous money and were, how do I put this, pretty terrible, but they proved that the audience was still there. Films like Baby Girl and The Housemaid have shown that, in the right hands and with a knowing sense of their own ridiculousness, erotic thrillers still have a place in cinemas. I mean, The Housemaid pulled in almost $400 million. With a sequel planned, the genre may be ready to truly ride again. Someone get Shannon Tweed on speed dial. And it's never really left the small screen either. From prestige dramas that have a tendency to get a little blue, to the conveyor belt of Hallmark and Lifetime movies with incredible titles like Psycho Escort and Dating to Kill, the genre has found a way to survive. And, in the end, Wild Things followed the tried and tested path of the erotic thriller more generally. A sharp, self-aware movie with a genuine mainstream appeal, with follow-ups that would find their true home on the small screen. By the end, the sequels became exactly what critics labelled the original: trashy, cheap, and completely lacking in subtlety. But the first one, that's still worth something. Despite never really following it up, John McNaughton crammed nuance, wit, and some excellent performances into a movie that deserved all of its success. One that was a lot more than the most paused scene in VHS history. For a brief moment in time, Wild Things made the erotic thriller MTV cool. And that's something we're probably never going to see again. Not least because MTV itself doesn't really exist anymore. Man, Blur were right. Modern life really is rubbish. Now, if I can just get my pause button to work again. And there we have it. The first ever Sequelpalooza on Cuts is in the books. Quicker, with more mood lighting than a Poison Ivy sequel, and still sloppier than Beethoven at breakfast time. Or wait, did I mean that? If you enjoy what we do, then subscribe so you never miss a video. In fact, why not watch this one right now?